You're on.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a privilege to be here. And just for a second, let's go into the future just a little bit. You just heard the applause die down. You're standing behind the lectern. The lights go down. And you look at the audience. There's over 200 people here to hear what you have to say. Now, you've been working on your presentations for the last year and a half, and you've arrived in front of this large group to give your presentation. Are you a little bit butterflies in the stomach? Certainly. But are you scared? No. Because you're prepared. And today, I'm going to show you 7 steps to making a great presentation. But before we get started, I have a couple of requests of you. Number one, I normally teach this over 3 days, and at a cost of $1,000. So as we talked the other day when we were talking about painting the silence, you don't have to invest anything today. All I need you to do is not take notes and pay attention to me, because at $46 a minute, you're going to miss a lot of what I have to say. So you will get a list of notes about 3/4 of the way through, and it will describe everything that I've talked about. So you won't need notes. You'll already have notes. The second concept I'd like you to consider is, because you're not taking notes, don't think you're going to miss anything, because we're going to get into a mind frame. Our mind frame is about learning today. You're going to open up your mind. You're going to open up your skull. You're going to expose your brain. And you're going to listen to what I'm saying. It's going to make so much sense. It's going to alter the way that you do presentations from this point forward. I guarantee that it's going to make a dramatic difference in the way you do public speaking and the way that you communicate with others. As you can see what Tony Robbins said, communication is power. When used appropriately and correctly, it gives you power that most people don't have. They don't even have an idea of what you are doing with them. The first step that I'd like you to do is, do you have that card, Cindy? I have it. First thing I'd like you to do is, because you're an artist, we talked about that. Remember painting the signs? We talked about you being an artist. The first thing you need is, every time you speak, make an introduction card. Give it to the master of ceremonies. Give it to the person who's going to introduce you. This is so important, because you can let everybody know who you are, why you're there, what you're going to talk about. And this paints a picture of you being the professional, because you are. You are the artist. You are painting the silence. And you want people to pay attention to what you have to say. So that being out of the way, you've been introduced. What you want to do now is, you want to first ask yourself, when you're putting your presentation together, the first question that you ask yourself is, why am I talking? This is really important. You have to ask yourself, why am I talking? Because remember, we talked about the artist drawing the lines in with a pencil? It's giving you structure to your paper, to your silence, if you will. So when you ask yourself, why am I talking? There are a couple of questions you have here. Is it to persuade? Is it to inform? Or is it to entertain? Now, lastly, the only reason you talk is to ask questions. So typically what we do is, we want to talk about persuade, inform, or entertain. How am I going to structure this? What kind of a speech is it? So now you decide what you want to do. Today is going to be an education. So I've structured this presentation as an education. Now, what is it that I want to do when I give this speech? The only reason I am talking and giving an informational speech or educational is to touch, move, and inspire. Remember TMI, those three magic words. Every time I speak, I want people to come to me and say, Rich, you've totally motivated me. I'm totally touched. I'm moved. I'm inspired by what you had to say. It's important that you shared with us some of your experience over the last 35 years. So that's a key point. So we start with, why am I talking? Ask yourself the question so you can frame your presentation. Decide what kind of a speech it's going to be. And then now you know you're going to touch, move, and inspire. So you need to be thinking about that as we go along. Now you can start structuring your speech. And the most important part of any speech that you do is understanding the three parts of communication. Right here is the key to the whole thing. Number one is body language. Now, it's unbelievable that body language has such a tremendous effect on what we have to say. Because your body language, if you watched the debates last night, I thought it was such a great contrast, because if you watch those debates and turn the sound off, there was a huge disparity. And the guy that I really liked wasn't the guy that emoted the things that I thought you should do. Vance was up there. You could see he was confident. He was smiling. He built immediate trust. And you knew that this guy was authentic when he talked. And he hadn't even said a word. But you look at Walz, I thought Walz had great things to say, but look here, that's the problem. The words are only 7% of what was being said. So when you put the two side by side, I thought that Vance did the better job. But it came to words, I thought Walz did the better job, but that's not my point. My point is, when I speak, I want people to pay attention to me. I want them to know that I'm being authentic. And you can't touch, move, and inspire when you're taking notes and you're watching the other guy. I wasn't touched, moved, and inspired by that at all. So that gives you a really great picture of what transpires when you're talking. Now the tone. The tone is important. And I like what Cindy said about it. It reminds me, my mother used tone when she spoke to us. I knew that when we were out playing late at night, and I should have been home for dinner, and I heard Richard Allen Greer out the front door, I knew I was in trouble. I mean, that was my name. Why would I think I was in trouble? It's the tone that she used when she said it. And when she's standing there with crossed arms, tied together with the tone, how much of her presentation was being presented to me? It was massive. The tone and the body language said everything I needed to know. Time to get my butt home and have dinner. That was important. When you do your speech, like I say, you're building rapport. Rapport is key to your speech. Now, if you're reading a speech, there's not much room for rapport building because there's no body language, there's no tone in your reading. Now, with subsequent presentations that I'm going to make for you, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'll show you how to study your presentation, how to practice it, how to deliver it, and give you all the things that you want. The rapport, the charisma. Those are the key things that we need when you make that presentation. And you'll see these fellows here, John Kennedy, Martin Luther, if you think back about their speeches and what they had to say, it wasn't standing at the podium with their arms crossed or their hands in their pockets. Number one, they were dressed for the part. It's important. When you make a presentation up here, you don't want to be shorts and a t-shirt. Now, if you're coming to observe, that's fine. But part of the charisma and the authenticity and part of the rapport is how you're dressed, because in the first 1 second that somebody looks at you and sees you, you don't even know it. You don't even know you do this. But it only takes like 5/10 of a second. You decide what kind of a person that is, and you don't even realize you're doing it. You look at a person's eyes, you look at their hair, you look at their clothes, and you kind of sum up who you think they are. So you stack the deck against you when you come up to the podium and you're dressed in shorts and a t-shirt and you're leaning on the lectern. What kind of a person does that? Rather than the person that's dressed well, makes good eye contact. And then when they present themselves, they do it with powerful language. They use their vocabulary. They use the words in such a way that it just evokes emotion in you. It's EQ, emotional quotient. What you want to do is you want to be able to relate to people on their grounds. Now, as I look around here, I look at each individual person here. What is it they're listening for? What are they looking for? I'm communicating. I'm asking questions, and you don't even know it. I'm looking at you. Are you interested? Alan here's shaking his head. He's going, yeah. I said, okay, that's good. He's getting what I'm saying. I see you sitting here, and you're smiling, and your foot's wiggling. I take everything in, and I'm paying attention to what you're doing. Touch, move, and inspire. If you're not getting feedback from your audience, try a different tack. You're going to maybe have to switch up a little bit, maybe a little more vocal variety, maybe some jokes or something. But your audience will determine exactly what it is that you need to do. All you need to do is pay attention and ask the question through your eyes. I can see you're really paying attention. It seems to me that you like what you're hearing. You're enjoying this. I like that. That's important to me. Everybody here seems to be enjoying what they're getting. And look, here you're smiling. That makes me feel good. I'm getting somewhere. Like I say, the same thing as John Kennedy, Martin Luther. And this is a favorite quote of mine. Cicero said, wow, what a wonderful speaker Cicero is. But when Demosthenes speaks, armies march. Does that speak volumes to you? That's huge. That's gigantic. Now, let's go back to putting our speech together. We've drawn in the lines. We know what we want to do. We know that we want to touch, move, inspire, so that's in the back of our mind. How am I going to do that when I'm making this educational presentation? This may seem really funny to you, but every speech that you do has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, I can't play the piano, but I can tell you a good piano player. Now, you all think, I'm not going to say all of you, but there are some of you that think, I don't, my speech, I'm really worried about it. I don't know how to do a good speech. Well, yes, you do. You actually already know how to do a good speech. Because if you turn on TED Talks and you see these people speak, you can tell that you've got a good speaker. You can see their hand gestures. You can hear the vocal variety. You can hear the tone. But the main thing is, you already know what a good speech looks like. Now, this is going to be critical to our next session. So remember that. You already know what a great speech is. You can tell one. Even though I can't play the piano, I can tell a good piano player. Your beginning of your speech is what my goal was to inspire you at the beginning of this speech, to get you in your head to stand in front of a crowd of 200 people, ready, willing, and able to deliver a presentation that you practiced for. I wanted to inspire you to come to that level. That's why I opened my speech up that way. My presentation was to start you thinking. It's the same thing as the learning board here. I want you to think about learning. I plant these, actually it's a little hypnosis, because if I plant these thoughts in your head, you're going to start thinking about that. It may be in the background, but you're going to start thinking that way. So the beginning of your speech, you want to make sure that you have attention, that you've developed exactly what it is that you want them to hear. So you're telling them what you're going to tell them, if you will. My speech today is about giving a speech. So I'm telling you what that's all about. The middle part is really about giving the facts. You want to give the facts that support the beginning of your presentation. Very structured. This is really structured. You have to go from the beginning to the middle. Now you give the facts. You talk about what it is that has occurred during your presentation. You give them the ideas and the concepts, because there are some people that they're visual and they're auditory, and then there's the guy that wants to know, okay, well, exactly how can I use this? So you kind of want to cover all those different bases. You want to answer those questions, how this works. That's why I'm giving you examples of when you stand in front of a crowd, about your body language, about what it is you're talking about. And then there's the end. So we're telling them what we're going to tell them. We're giving them the facts about how it works. And now we're going to tell them what we told them. We're going to back up everything that we said. And that's what we're going to do here. When my presentation comes toward the end, we're going to sit here, we're going to have a summary. This is the end of my presentation. But I'm going to tell you what I just told you. I want to reinforce that with you. Now with the educational or with the persuasive, you want to do a CTA. That's a call to action. So in other words, if you're a politician, you're going to talk about who you are and what you've done and accomplished, but then what you want to do is you want to call to action. I need you to get out and vote. That's what you hear at the end of all of these political ads. I want you to get out and vote. I want you to do this. If you want to go here, you've got to do that. Beginning, middle, end, and finally a call to action. Now, Cindy, forgive me. I don't know what's going on with my timer.
Oh.
No, I'm not done. I'm not done. I just...
Like 8 seconds.
How long?
5 seconds.
5 seconds? Okay. That's good. Well, I have actually, is that 18 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So to summarize, communication is power. We know that. We've talked about that. You have to have powerful communication. You create charisma. That's the magic in a presentation. And lastly is the structure for the whole thing you can do. You are painters of words. You paint the silence. I'm going to show you 2 more steps that'll make you powerful speakers. And I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.